Good morning, everyone. We'll get started and people slowly come in. Um, so good morning, everyone, and good afternoon or good evening for those who are online. My name is Remy Jedvab. I'm a professor of economics and international affairs and the director of the Institute for International Economic Policy, or IIEP as we like to call it. Today is my pleasure to welcome you all to the Elliott School of International Affairs for this 5th edition of the GW India Conference on India's economic development and US-India economic relations. This edition will be different from the 4th edition in the sense that we'll focus on how to make India an advanced economy by 2047, in particular by strengthening institutions and addressing inequities. I want to thank our partner organizations for this event, especially the Seeger Center for Asian Studies, the GW Center for International Business Education and Research, or GW Cyber, the Economics Department at GW, and the Local Sustainable Governance Lab at the Elliott School of International Affairs. I also want to thank warmly Dr. Ajay Chiber, who is a distinguished visiting scholar at IIEP, former Assistant Secretary General of the UN, and the chair of the organizing committee of this conference. Ajay did a terrific job, and we're very grateful for his very active involvement. So thank you, Ajay. We also want to thank the other members of the organizing committee, especially James Foster and Deepa Olapalli. We also want to thank our staff and the members of the IEP Executive Circle. I will now give the floor to Eric Schlossel, who is the director of the Seeger Center for Asian Studies. And we'll talk again after you. Great.
Good morning, and thank you very much. Hi, yes, I'm Eric Schlussel, director of the Seeger Center for Asian Studies, and we're very, very proud to be co-sponsoring this event. Around DC, where there is Asia, there is the Seeger Center. We are one of America's top 10 Asian studies centers, and we are by far the most active and with the largest reach in the Washington, DC area. And so, of course, when IIEP approached us, we said, well, we'll do what we can. Our center is a comprehensive Asian studies center. We focus on all sorts of things. Taiwan, we have a growing Myanmar focus. Chinese politics is always at the forefront, but we have a very special place in our hearts and our programming for India. Just recently, we were very honored to host for our annual Gaston Seeger Memorial Lecture, Nirupama Rao, former Indian ambassador to Beijing and to Washington, D.C. She gave a very insightful and stimulating talk right here, actually, I think at this podium, about the future of India-China relations. But as unfortunately, research professor Deepa Olapalli cannot be here today, I'll also speak a bit about her wonderful work that we host on South Asia in particular. For many years, Deepa Olapalli has directed the Rising Powers Initiative, which seeks to spotlight the diversity of opinion and the challenges surrounding various Asian countries' domestic and foreign politics as different countries in Asia seek to gain power and negotiate their places in a new world. Professor Olapalli's work has been supported by grants from the Department of State. It's produced many important publications, significant policy analysis, and frequent conferences, including collaborations with Christ University in India. I'd also be remiss if I did not mention the Tibet Governance Project, which we also host, which of course touches very much on the Tibetan presence at Dharamsala in India. So that is what I'll say. If you think of India, please come by the Seeger Center. But for today, enjoy this wonderful, wonderful event that IIEP is putting on. Thanks for having us.
So I will now it is now my pleasure to introduce the chair of the our opening keynote session, Alyssa Ayres, who is the Dean of the Elliott School of International Affairs. Dean Ayres is a foreign policy practitioner, an award-winning author with senior experience in the government, nonprofit, and private sectors. From 2013 to 2021, she was a senior fellow for India, Pakistan, and South Asia at the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR. From 2010 to 2013, Dean Ayres also served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia. Finally, research focused primarily on India's role in the world and on US relations with South Asia in a larger Indo-Pacific. Dean Ayres has written several books on South Asia, a book about India's rise on the world stage, or Time Has Come, or India is making its place in the world, was, for example, published by Oxford University Press in 2018. Dean Ayres is also very interested in the emergence of subnational engagement in foreign policy, particularly the growth of international city networks, which is also one of our main specializations at IIEP. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dean Alyssa Ayres, who will introduce our two keynote speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. I'm so happy to be able to welcome you all here today. I should also add good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because I know we have colleagues joining us from around the world, including from India. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to our 5th conference on India's economic development and U.S.-India economic relations. We do have the honor of hosting 2 very distinguished speakers to inaugurate our day of conversation. We'll begin with a keynote address from Ambassador Vinay Kwatra, who is with us, followed by a thematic address from Mr. Ramakrishnan Mukundan, who will be speaking remotely from Mumbai. I think we have, as you'll see, an exciting start to a stellar lineup of economic leaders at today's conference. And as a scholar practitioner focused on India and US-India relations, I'm really pleased that we've been able to convene such an esteemed group today, really with such depth on dimensions of the US-India economic relationship and Indian economic development. This shows the importance that we at George Washington University and the Elliott School place on understanding India's development and its role in the world. I also want to add that we come together today just 2 days after a shocking terrorist attack on tourists in Pahalgam. So our hearts go out to the victims and their families and to the people as they work to recover from this tragedy. Now, as Remy noted, we're delighted to have the support and partnership of the Seeger Center, of GW Cyber, of the Economics Department, and of the local Sustainable Governance Policy Lab. This interdisciplinary work is really at the heart of what we do here at the Elliott School, and it captures the breadth of the expertise that we'll hear today related to India. I am now delighted to introduce the ambassador who will speak today on making India an advanced economy by 2047. I'll note in advance that he has a hard stop, so he'll need to wrap up around 9:25, and then he'll have to make his way, at which point I will introduce our thematic speaker. Ambassador Vinay Kwatra assumed charge as the ambassador of India to the United States on August 12, 2024. He joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1988, and in a career spanning over 36 years, he's served in senior roles both in Delhi and across the globe. Most recently, he served as India's Foreign Secretary, the topmost career position in the Indian Foreign Service, from May 2022 to July 2024. And prior to that, he served as India's ambassador to Nepal from March 2020 to April 2022, and ambassador of India to France and permanent representative of India to UNESCO from 2017 to 2020. Now, this is actually his 2nd tour here in Washington, D.C. From May 2010 to July 2013, he served as head of the commercial wing of the embassy. He knows a lot about U.S.-India economic relations, and I actually had the good fortune of working closely with him at that time. I was serving in the U.S. State Department at the time, and so we spoke on a near daily basis about the many economic issues in the U.S.-India relationship. He had previous Foreign Service assignments, including at the SAARC Secretariat in Kathmandu, in Beijing as the Deputy Chief of Mission, and in other roles spanning Tashkent, Durban, Karachi, and Geneva. And at headquarters in Delhi, he has served as Joint Secretary in the Prime Minister's office, and he's headed several divisions of the Ministry of External Affairs, including the Americas Division, Public Policy and Research, and Counterterrorism Division. So you'll see he has a breadth of expertise that he is bringing now to his role as India's ambassador to the United States. And Ambassador Kwatra, we're so delighted that you're able to kick us off with an inaugural address this morning. I invite you now to the podium.
Thank you very much, Alyssa, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity this morning to speak to you with regard to the topic on India targeting to become advanced economy by 2047. Before I begin my remarks and To echo what Alyssa said, I wish to bring to your attention the terrorist attack on 22nd of April in Pahalgam, in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, in which 25 Indians and one Nepali citizen was killed. A number of others sustained injuries. We have, and we do, condemn this attack in the strongest terms and express our deepest condolences to the families of the victims and hope for the early recovery of the injured. We are also deeply touched by the overwhelming support and heartfelt messages that we have received from the US government and many friends and well-wishers in Washington, DC, and all across the US. This only reinforces our belief that we would work closely with our friends and partners to address the issue of terrorism, in particular, the cross-border terrorism. Before I begin, if I could request just to observe a moment of silence in spirit of those who lost their lives in this attack. Thank you very much. Now, on the topic of making India an advanced economy by 2047, economic development journey of any nation would normally have a good, healthy mix of strong internal constituents to that development, but also strong externalities to that development. And as any country progresses in that journey, both these elements get interwoven as they seek to achieve their economic objectives. So I will just refer to one small data point for you, which gives you a comparative reference to how externalities of India's economic growth have advanced over a period of years. And a large number of similar data points are embedded in India's own internal dynamics of the growth story. So as Alyssa said, I was last here from 2010 through 2013. At that time, roughly, our bilateral trade generally stood at about around $50 to $60 billion. That was the state. Today, when I've come here 10 years down the line, it is already at about $200 to $220 billion. And when my Prime Minister traveled to Washington, DC in February this year, on 13th February, the target that the two leaders set for our systems is the bilateral trade to become 500 billion by the year 2030. So 2010 to 2013, around 50, aiming to reach 500 by 2030. This gives you, a 30,000 perspective of how externalities of economy are progressing. And naturally, each one of this is then linked back home to how the developments within the economy are taking place. A related point, again, just to reorient in the perspective in which we look at it. 10 years ago, around 2014, 2015, we were around $2 trillion economy. India was $2 trillion economy. And we were positioned as the 10th largest economy at that time. Today, in 2025, we are projected to be $4 trillion plus as we proceed within the 2025, and we are already the fifth largest economy, hoping to become the third largest in coming couple of years. And by the end of this decade, take our GDP from what it is currently, $4 trillion, to hopefully around $8 trillion. So that gives you another perspective of how the sheer macro GDP numbers have been growing, the rate at which they have been growing. And then, of course, those who are scholars and experts in this domain would appreciate that if a GDP growth rate of a country moves at a certain rate beyond certain numbers, what does it mean for that country's consumption growth? What does it mean for that country's credit growth? What does it mean for that country's capital expansion within the industry, within the infrastructure? What does it mean for the revenue growth, which is very crucial because eventually expenditure cannot always be funded beyond a point by debt? What does it mean for the capital headroom for the economy in terms of capitalization of resources? Naturally, the requirements of those economy at 1 trillion or 2 trillion would be very different from when it is, let's say, 4 trillion and when it will be 8 trillion. Those of you who research this space will know very well that with every increment of 1 trillion, it becomes that much difficult to put together the other resources which you require to grow. So that gives you another perspective of where we are, where we were in 2014, where we are, and everything accompanying that in between, and where we plan to be. And now those numbers are all very numerical in that sense, but there is also a qualitative spread of growth, I should say, in the Indian economy, in the Indian society, which is very remarkable, but I would say equally very essential for it to be a commensurate growth factor along with the growth of the economy, because that is what is responsible to ensure that growth is not just equitous, but it's also inclusive in terms of including other sections of the economy. So just wanted to flag that. And come 2047, our aim is to touch anywhere between, these are broad numbers, so don't hold me to that, roughly between 30 to $40 trillion economy by 2047. We call it, my Prime Minister's vision to call it is Viksit Bharat. Again, as I said, not just in terms of numbers, but also in terms of quality of life that it would bring to India's citizen. Now here, if I could just, we are a civilizational nation, and many analysts tend to look at, paradoxes which exist. There are multiple paradoxes in India. These are real in many ways, but also many of these are extrapolated because it's very easy to pick them up and correlate, whereas they both exist in their own buckets, and the resolution and solution to those ones exist in their own individual baskets. So you would find experts saying that India has extraordinary energy and ambition, but also has some persistent challenges, which is a fact for any society, in particular for a developing economy like ours. They also see us as I said, fifth largest economy, but which is still trying to work through the challenges of pulling large number of its people out of poverty line, and which is also there. They also recognize a fact for us to see that India launches missions to the moon, which are most cost effective in terms of world, and most efficient, and also scientifically most advanced, but also is working through our own society to provide basic utilities and a sense of governance to the people. We are a startup nation, more than 100 unicorns in India, but we also still navigate the issue of informal employment workforce within India now. As I said, analysts would view them as paradoxes, But we would see, as I said, each of these requires a solution matrix, which is typical to the particular class of issues you're looking at. But we see in these, yes, challenges, but we also see very, very strong opportunities, very, very strong promises in these paradoxes. So first, promise for us as we move into 2047. Indeed, a lot of it is already now a reality, which is essentially to have a developmental arc, which is one, most importantly, inclusive, two, sustainable in all its aspects, yeah, and cohesive, which will in many ways address the question of equities within the distribution of this wealth into the society, and yet robust and dynamic. That's the first key, you could say, promise and inherent goal in where we are trying to be in 2047. To related to that, create opportunities, promise of creating opportunities in a manner that no section of the society or no citizens of the society is left behind in terms of his expectations of his own welfare, as also the governance needs of that citizen, which government needs to meet. Three, more important, very important, and has been a consistent feature of how we looked at it. When we particularly look at innovation, science and technology, focus on value creation, not just wealth creation. So monetization of technology and innovation, yes, is an inherent thing which goes along with that particular class of goals. But there is also a strong focus on building value for the society, and a lot of things you would see in technology space, and I'll talk very briefly about them as I go along. Essentially focus on that part. Then a related part is we're focusing on building a country that also becomes a key pillar in driving the global economic growth. And it is quite natural as our GDP size grows, as its externalities grow, it will automatically begin to work as a center of international economic growth driver. It already is in many aspects, in many areas of services, I would say some areas of manufacturing also. A related part without which all this may not be possible is to build very modern physical and digital systems. So, and physical systems would include all aspects of our infrastructure economy, and digital systems would include, of course, not just digital infrastructure, but also what is the technology intensity of the society. I think as it needs to permeate and grow alongside our economic growth. And of course, something which is already it is already a fact, have a skilled talent pool that not only serves the need of the Indian economy, but also responds well to what the requirements of such a skill set might be globally. So we see in our journey towards 1947, these promises which we have made to ourselves. And these are not just promises, these are then translated into specific targeted objectives to be achieved at particular timelines as we go forward and hit 2047. Why 2047 matters? One, of course, it's a generational milestone. It will be a declaration that India would turn 100 at that time. And we also, in line of what I just mentioned, these promises, need to redefine for ourselves what modern will mean in that sense. For us, as I said, we just don't mean high per capita income for each citizen, but also I would say a dignity of life, which goes dignity for all. Naturally, universal access to quality healthcare and education for all citizens. Green, clean energy for our industries as home, which is quite a significant challenge given that a fair bit of a substantial chunk of India's energy is imported, particularly in terms of fossil fuel requirements. But we have embarked in last 10 years on a absolutely a revolutionary speed and scale when it comes to achieving objectives in the space of renewable, in particularly the solar, not just the quantum of what's going on the grid, but also the cost at which that energy is available to people. Vibrant innovation ecosystem, as I said, and institutions that are trusted, resilient, and responsive. So in short, an industrialized India that embeds a healthy mix of, as I said, manufacturing, services, and agriculture. In terms of, sheer growth numbers, if you were to look at last decade and then take that as a base to project for the decades ahead, the years ahead, leading up to 2047, the matrix of GDP growth operates somewhere between 6.5% to, let's say, 7.6 or 7.7%. That's the annual GDP growth we would register. But a good element of this, an important and a relevant element of this to flag is that a good percentage of this growth essentially comes from domestic consumption. It's not a model which is followed by many other fast developing countries. And as a result, there is a degree of insulation inbuilt, resilience inbuilt into the economic growth, because that chunk of GDP growth is more or less ensured because it's based on domestic consumption. There is one point, I think, which sometimes gets lost when you are working on it on daily basis, which is that the policy and the processes that the government of India is following today sometimes would be seen in only today's context. But I think people would do well to also examine them from the perspective of where we want to reach in 2047. So in many ways, while not explicitly, stated so, policies and processes are aimed at the objectives of 2047, and in that way are derivative of that objective. This is what we must do to reach where we want to reach. So there is a degree of a clear visualization path of process and policies and the related targets and objectives as you move forward on that. Naturally, this would require continuing, bold reforms within the Indian economy. It would require strong buildup of strong domestic capacities across different domains, institutional partnerships, strategies that lend our economy to adapt quickly to the global changes that go around, but also at the same time respond to the needs of the society. And in this case, I would say the reform process as also its implementation, equally important to implement the reforms, would have to be very ambitious, but also very clearly connected to the targets that we are trying to reach. So in a way, the process, the reforms, the policies, all network in an integrated fashion so that they are not just concepts, but there is a great degree of functionality attached to them as you link them to the targets of 2047. So I think this part sometimes get lost in terms of when people look at those things in very isolated basket. Three broad strategic levers, among others. I'm just mentioning three key. As we go forward, we'll be looking at them. One would be, as I said, again, an extension of what I said, productive growth with purpose. Now, what I'm referring to is that when we build our industrial and service sector capabilities, we will look at multiple objectives embedded in them. So, for example, generating Formal jobs, we are 1.4 billion people. We have a large number of youth that come into employment market every year. When we register our economic growth has to take into mind that it needs to serve that requirement of providing employment to this fresh and the continuing growth of youth. Generate formal job, naturally boost exports. It is linked to that. And then domestic demand. We are always careful in ensuring that domestic demand and domestic consumption continues to follow a very healthy and robust path. That would naturally mean you invest in manufacturing. It would naturally mean you invest in logistics, naturally value chains, not just global value chains, but also domestic value chains, and both rural and urban infrastructure, which is again key because it is a growth matrix in itself. There is a certain GDP quotient which is associated directly to the building of infrastructure and efficient infrastructure going forward. So there are several schemes and initiatives that Government of India has launched under, Make in India. These are like PLI schemes, essentially manufacturing incentivizing scheme, Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is self-reliant India. So essential focus there is to create an entire ecosystem which is internally robust, sound, growing, and very healthily connected to the outside world at the same time. We are also looking at a new, since we are in the digital age, looking at a new social contract which focuses not just on inclusion of citizens in terms of conventional terms, but also in terms of digital inclusion. Now, people have heard this story of, not story, it's actually now a proper fact, which is the robustness of India's digital public infrastructure. It has many layers to it, but there are 2-3 key elements which I wanted to flag, which are crucial in understanding how digital economy is leading to inclusion in the society. And it's not an inclusion just of an individual. It is everything that surrounds that individual. It is inclusion of his, how should I say, financial world. It's inclusion of his social world. It's an inclusion of his employment world. So it's a multi-inclusive kind of, it's a junction box which of inclusion, I would say. So it has an identity layer, the digital public infrastructure, which is the Aadhaar, that's our biometric ID. Then it has a payment layer, which is the UPI digital payment backbone. And then it has linked to it an account layer. We now have pretty much most of the population fully banked and financially included through the system. It also has another feature, the UPI, the payment system, which is taken for granted, but I think people, if I could just spend a second to appreciate the point there. And this was mentioned by my finance secretary yesterday also, that if you look at the cost of the credit card in your payment system, it costs you, I mean, people experts here will know, 12%, 12.5% kind of cost. If you look at debit card, the cost is about 1%, 1.5%. Through this UPI payment, digital payment system, the cost I'm told is 0.05%. That's the cost. Plus, it is accessible. So, the most, at the ground, at the very fundamental level, a street vendor will have a QR code available to him and will have a voice-based text which will reach him. X amount of money has been credited or debited into his account depending upon the nature of the transaction. So we took this digital stack and both on the identity level and on the payment level, took it to the scale of the entire population. So it was not just a prototype which will exist in a lab. It is now a functional platform which actually has been taken to the scale, and is actually so nimble and robust at the same time that it can be customized to fit the digital needs of any other country. So it's a value proposition which is not just relevant for us, but is equally useful for anybody who may want to use it in their own developmental journey. And we currently have a large number of projects going on in Africa, and it doesn't require us actually to hold their data with us. Its data remains with them. We do it for them. We do the hand holding, and then they run it. So it's a very remarkable example of how innovation focuses on value and the governance needs, not just on monetary needs. It's not an example of wealth creation. It's more an example of mass-based value creation, which leads to cost efficiencies, administrative efficiencies, ease of transaction. It's a whole package, as they say. If I could also just mention a related point, which is, we are all talk about artificial intelligence these days, which is an important element of our continuing growth of the humanity. If you look at the spread of artificial intelligence all over the world, and you ask yourself, which are the key geographies of artificial intelligence today, you will find that India is probably today among the most artificial intelligence geographies, both in terms of, again, this is very relevant, consumption of artificial intelligence, monthly active users of artificial intelligence. India is among the main AI geographies. The talent for artificial intelligence, creation of context-specific and sector-specific models of artificial intelligence that you can scale anywhere across any domain. India is a classic case, which is trying to excel in that field. And then, of course, the customized applications. So now this development, combined with the digital innovation ecosystem, combined with the strong human resources in the field of science and technology, is essentially changing the entire technology landscape of India, and are increasing the technology intensity of the society, which essentially becomes a virtuous loop in itself. One feeds the other as it grows. For us, our worldview is technology oriented, but it's also development oriented. So technology serves as a bridge for governance, democracy, development. And that's the reason why we are able to scale it up to the level of population, not just restricted to valuation on the street and the Wall Street. And frankly, the UPI and all that are perhaps not even have any, how should I say, our Wall Street equivalent connect in that sense. So, and the third and the last part there, which brings me to the externality of us, which is the India-US partnership. We have to touch upon that. It's very relevant for our journey. US is India's largest trading partner. It's also one of our largest investment partners. It's also one of the largest technology partners that India has. So in all aspects, capital needs, externalization of industry and economy and trade and technology, and the entire process of industrialization. And I would say add two more critical features to it, which is the trust and reliability of partnership in this space. I think US is very, very important partner for us. We are strategic partners. We have a comprehensive strategic partnership, which if you take any human economic endeavor and try to plot it on the template of India-US partnership, you will find that particular area, that particular domain is a very strong aspect of our partnership. Going forward, trade linkages. Trade is quite prominent in town these days. So trade linkages, we are already, following my Prime Minister's visit in February, have already been in very strong and intense discussions on the first tranche of bilateral trade agreement. Even as I speak, our trade teams are talking with each other. Research linkages, innovation partnerships, defense and security, space, and other areas of economic development, they all form a very key constituent of this partnership. If I could just quote what the Honorable Vice President of the US said while he was in India yesterday in his statement. I'll just pick up some quotes just to reflect a sense of capture on the US side for this relationship, which also echoes what we believe in, which is that I think, one said a quote, I think that our nations have so much to gain by investing in one another. America investing in India, and of course, India investing in the United States of America. We are now officially 1/4 into 21st century, 25 years in, 75 years to go. And I really believe that the future of the 21st century is going to be determined by the strength of the United States-India partnership. I believe that if India and the United States work together successfully, we are going to see a 21st century that is prosperous and peaceful. But I also believe that if we fail to work together successfully, the 21st century would be a very dark time for all of humanity, unquote. To the younger lot who's present in the room, I would say that India's story is no longer a spectator sport or a scholar sport or whatever, whichever terminology you would want to use for it. I think it's essentially a society with an invitation to think big, thinking big, to act globally, to design systems, and systems would include everything, not just physical system, policy system, process systems, but which are inclusive. And I cannot emphasize that word enough, inclusive and at the same time efficient, which have to be, these two have to come together for that 2047 goal of developed India to be meaningful. And we are working towards that. So whether you work on health economics, urban design, macro policy, digital regulation, we think that these ideas will shape how countries like India and the complexities of the 21st century converge together for us to succeed in that development objectives. I hope some, if not many of you, will work in India. Some will study in India. Hope will build enduring partnerships with India. I know many of you already have that. We stand at a cusp in our society where prosperity and opportunity are there. And in 2047, we aim to be an economy that is not just powerful, but also peaceful, not just wealthy, but hopefully wise, not just advanced, but hopefully also admired. And we are working all we can to reach there. I think I'll stop here and once again thank each one of you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us. And as I mentioned, he has to leave. We are going to switch up the technology now, and we will now have a keynote thematic address. This will be from Mr. Ramakrishnan Mukundan, and he's going to be speaking about India's path to an advanced economy, growth, and structural transformation. As you can see, he's joining us from Mumbai. Mr. Mukundan is Managing Director and CEO of Tata Chemicals. He joined the Tata Administrative Service in 1990 after completion of his MBA from FMS Delhi University. He is a distinguished alumnus of IIT Roorkee, a fellow of the Indian Chemical Society, and an alumnus of Harvard Business School. He was awarded an honorary doctorate in business administration from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar, and he has over 30 years experience at Tata Group, during which time he has held various responsibilities across chemical, automotive, and hospitality sectors of the Tata Group. He serves in a variety of industry fora and impact organizations, and he's currently Vice President of the Confederation of Indian Industry for FY 2024-25. Now, following his thematic address, I will invite Mr. Mukundan to join us for an audience Q&A. So I encourage all of you to begin thinking about what questions you'd like to ask him as you listen to his address. Mr. Mukundan, on behalf of the Elliott School of International Affairs and the George Washington University, it's my pleasure to welcome you for your thematic address. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Ramakrishnan Mukundan.
Thank you, and thank you for this invitation. I have about 30 minutes to speak, or could you just...
Yeah, we can adjust the time a bit. Yes, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think, firstly, it's indeed an honor and privilege to speak to all of you. And I want to thank Ajay for the invitation to be amongst all of you. And I want to start by saying I also joined the Honorable Ambassador in extending my condolences and also say that our sympathies with the innocent lives which were lost. And really keeping with the theme today, I think Honorable Ambassador has already laid out the overall foundation of what I need to speak. So I will go into a lot of specifics. I'll take up some of the thematic areas and dive a little bit deeper into micro rather than stay with the macro. And as a part of introduction, the Tatas are very much intertwined with the United States. It's one of our largest markets, immediately following India. For my company, out of 4 million tons of products we manufacture, 2.5 million tons are manufactured in US. In fact, it's larger than the Indian site. I am very often in the state of Wyoming, flying through Salt Lake City. So very much intertwined, and these two economies have much in common, and really delighted to engage to see how we can bring these two economies together. At the very start, I think around 2024, I was part of CII, which is a industry association. We sat together as a team, and in fact, we put out a document, which is India at 100. And a lot of what I'm going to speak is going to come from that document, which we actually put together. It's a 300-page document. I'm not going to speak full about it, but fundamentally highlight some of the key themes coming out of what is the opportunity for India and what is the opportunity for partnership between India and United States. And really, I don't want to say that, there was also a request by Ajay to talk about the current fragmentation. I have a view which is very contrarian, that even in this fragmentation, we are continuing to build networks of forces, and there will be many, many themes which you will see as I speak through, which will support this thesis that actually we are even more networked, and fragmentation, while it appears on the surface, deep beneath it is completely one large network. I want to start by saying what our chairman, the past chairman, Mr. J.R.D. Tata, often used to tell us when I just joined the group. He would often tell us that I don't want India to be a strong force for the future, but I want India to be a happy nation which lives in togetherness with the world. So the focus was more on building a happy society, and clearly, when we set out on this task of defining what we want to be in the next, when we turn 100 by 2047, we said that we should not start from history of looking back, but also look forward and work our way down to say where we need to be. And one of the elements we highlighted in that was very much that whatever vision we draw for India at 100, it must build upon aspirations of common people, a girl child in a village, a fisherman along the coast, an ambitious entrepreneur in the country's hinterland. All these people need to feel part of the movement, part of the growth. The second element which we grappled with was that world around us was changing. There were many, many trends which were emerging, trends like aging global population. There was going to be, rapid urbanization. Then we talk about global temperature rise in terms of sustainability. The technology landscape was changing rapidly with AI, with metaverse, with blockchain. All these things were coming into play. And we created a word called Amrit. Amrit is called nectar, nectar of life, AMRIT. And these actually stood for what we think are the key factors or key pillars of India at 100. To start with A, it is achieve holistic leadership in the new world order. We do believe that the world order is changing. And in that new world order, we need to play a very holistic role. And I'll explain in a brief, a minute or two on what that means for all of us. The second piece was around M standing for maximize equitable economic progress. And this is around agriculture, this is around manufacturing, this is around services. Here I'll later on speak about one sector in manufacturing where I think India and US could cooperate a lot, which is in the semiconductor and in making sure that there's a hardware which is supply chains are tied together. R standing for revitalize India's soft power. This is in art and culture, in tourism, in sports. I think these three elements of the soft power are going to play a very, very big role in building a very happy society. I standing for innovate to stay ahead of the curve, which is focus on climate and sustainability, build digital platforms, and also look at future technologies, transformative technologies. And I'll speak a bit about what are the emerging sectors for us to cooperate, be it space, be it medical devices, be it new critical minerals. I think these will be the areas where I think both economies can cooperate. And lastly, T is where I think the whole social potential comes through, which is to focus on skill development and education, build infrastructure and focus on urbanization, focus on healthcare, and also lastly, it's about the judiciary, governance, and public administrations. So Amrit standing for achieving holistic leadership in New World Order, maximizing equitable economic progress, revitalizing India's soft power, and innovate to stay ahead of the curve and transform the core. And in each one of them, I'll dive a bit deep into what those elements mean. In terms of broadly our view of the world, in terms of holistic leadership, this was laid out when our founding fathers wrote our constitution. And in the Constituent Assembly, one of the resolutions which they passed was, this is an ancient land which is now attaining its rightful and honored place in the world. And as it makes its full and willing contribution, we will promote world peace and welfare of mankind. So they set out a vision which was not just about growth of India, but also making sure that the entire mankind, the welfare of the mankind. So really we see when India turns 100, there will be 4 elements of the holistic leadership in New World Order, that we will continue to be a growth engine for the world economy. While we will be amongst the top 3 economies at that point of time, we also want to play a role of a very trusted player in the global supply chain, and also a trusted destination for both technology and fund flows. So be a growth engine for the world. We also want to remain rooted in our traditional values while addressing global issues. So while development is going to be one of the key areas, we also want to work with the developing countries to remain their voice in the global forums. The third element is about innovation. We want to develop India into an innovation hub, be it space technology, be it sustainability, be it biotechnology, be it healthcare. And I think we are already seeing in our startups this element getting deep roots. And finally, we want to build what we call as a pioneering way of equitable social economic development by focusing on HDI, by building a strong, qualified, healthy human capital, and broadly citizens of the world who are able to contribute irrespective of where they stand in the socio-economic order. So this was our 4 pillars of achieving holistic new world order. With the when we get on to this whole piece around maximizing economic progress, we focused on 3 pieces, as I said: agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Rather than give a broad brush about all what we said in manufacturing, I'm going to pick a specific sector on electronics and what we sort of sat through as a team, and what we thought we could do, and especially where I think India and US could cooperate a lot in electronics and semiconductor. As you know, electronics today is one of the largest import bill of India. We import a lot of electronics, and building a domestic manufacturing base and building a base for the world holds a huge opportunity. Electronic manufacturing in India in the last few years has grown at compounded rate of 20%, and it is expected to reach about $300 billion of revenue by 2026. And today, all the mobile handsets, 99% which are sold in India, are made in India. And just a decade ago, 74% of these mobile phones were imported. So that's the pace or transition which has happened in building a domestic base. And we do believe that in electronics, India should aspire to be the second top global manufacturer. We do believe that there is an opportunity for India to build a $2 trillion sector and account for at least 15% of the global market share in 2047. And we will also have, broadly, a large-scale 5 to 7 indigenous semiconductor fabs, 10 indigenous assembly testing, and the Tatas are playing a big role in this in terms of setting this whole ecosystem. We believe that some of the technologies like 5G, 6G, smart manufacturing, augmented virtual reality, AI, these will all play a critical role in creating demand for this semiconductor investment. We are setting out to build a massive mega factories now, and each one is employing over 100,000 people. And these plants which we are setting up are all part of the global value chain. And many of these factories actually have, we are building it in a gender neutral way, but the majority of the workforce in these plants are actually women. And some of these plants are all women. So it is building a huge amount of diversity. To do this, I think we've got a lot of work at hand as an industry. We do believe that this cannot be done without some of the steps which we need to undertake internally. Fundamentally, one is about the component ecosystem. While we can assemble the components and build a large-scale volume of the finished product, the real strength comes when we start to make the components here, the basic chips here, and our effort is fundamentally to enable that transition. And many of the large companies like Tata's are putting a lot of capital in building that component ecosystem. We are already, as I mentioned, building mega factories, and we are also fundamentally looking at skilling our workforce so that we have ready workforce to meet the needs of this sector. India is a very vibrant startup ecosystem. So some of these startups are actually working in electronic space. And all this which we are doing, we are building it to global quality standard. Our supply chains are geared around the best of the brands in the world. And there is a quality standard which is second to none. And the output of these factories can compete on quality, on cost, on delivery. One of the key enablers is going to be India's ability to try to sign free trade agreements. We've been engaging with government that this is going to play a key role, and we are working on early harvest of these trade agreements, not just with US, where as Ambassador spoke, that our teams are already in Washington, D.C., trying to engage and negotiate a trade deal. We're also in advanced stage of signing up with EU and UK. We already have the free trade agreement with Australia and with the Middle East in UAE, with ASEAN, with Korea and Japan already, which is already working. We also think we need to look at a global information technology agreement, which will sort of cover all these products which we speak about, so that the future development and future standards are common, and the R&D institutions can work towards these standards. And finally, since this is a global industry, we believe that we need to build an ecosystem of cooperation of companies which are in multiple geographies, so that there is going to be a lot more collaborative work in building this ecosystem. So really, electronics, in my view, represents a very exciting opportunity, not just for India, but also for United States and for both our nations to collaborate to build a very resilient supply chain, and to build upon what will be the demands of the future as AI and the technologies, drone technology, all these are going to rely on chips. And building this is going to be a very critical path of not just the way we envision 2047, but also the way we see India and United States come together. Moving on to some of the other areas which I wanted to speak about, if you look at specifically the area around the emerging sectors, where again, I think there is a lot of opportunity for our countries to collaborate. I'll highlight a few as I move along. And these have been areas where while there have been some friction with respect to let's say the kind of tariff rates and barriers, we believe that time has come for both India and the United States to work together. Firstly, I think this whole piece on sustainability, where we are building what we call as sustainable mobility solutions, which is electric vehicles. I think it's an opportunity for both countries to work together and bring technologies together to build a supply chain. And that would mean that we get together in terms of making sure that both companies across both countries are able to cross-invest, are able to trade more freely. And this has been an area of engagement as we speak between the two governments in terms of how we achieve this. But one of the big issues in electric mobility is going to be also to build a charging infrastructure, to build the whole element of the battery ecosystem, the critical minerals ecosystem to enable this transition. And I think in that space, there is a lot of commonality between India and the United States, where we could engage on how we could enable this. In India, especially, this transition to electric mobility is going to mean that we need power sector reliability has to improve. We will need a massive investment in public charging stations. And it's an ongoing effort of the government and private sector to work together. And by enabling some of the US firms to come and invest in India, I think this could also be accelerating the transition which we need, so that India doesn't have to go through a long runway of internal combustion engine, but is able to leapfrog straight away into cleaner mobility solutions. There is also going to be a whole element of how do we build this whole value chain at the back end in terms of lithium, nickel, and cobalt, where both countries could cooperate. Internally within India, I think we have a focus which is clearly a focus on 2- and 3-wheelers, which is very different from the way US is developed. And the reason for that is today 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, the electric mobility solutions are almost acceptable alternatives to IC engines. They don't need a lot of support in terms of incentives, and they are able to compete on their own. Whereas for 4-wheelers and commercial vehicles, still there is an issue of incentives which are needed to adopt the changes, which Ambassador spoke about in terms of PLI schemes. We also believe that in terms of the medium term, India needs to have a focus on beyond just electric mobility, also into green power. Because at the end of the day, the grid power, if it doesn't turn green, one can always question whether the electric mobility solutions on offer are really green, because you can't have coal-fired boilers producing power, which then powers the electric mobility solution. So we are also actively working with government in terms of having a national policy change, which will accelerate transition beyond fossil fuel. And in fact, India has been at the forefront of investing in solar, investing in wind, and our national solar mission is one of the success stories of the government and private sector working together. We also believe that this space needs a lot of skilling, because the whole ecosystem of maintaining and servicing electric vehicles is very different from the ecosystem which we have built for IC engines. And that effort is already on in terms of by the industry itself. We also need to work through, when we talk about electric mobility, the whole life cycle management. And there, I think there could be a cross-learning between India and the United States. How do we build a second life use for batteries? How do we recycle and remanufacture these products to make sure that they all serve the whole purpose of circularity? And lastly, I think there could be a common funding in R&D efforts between our two countries in this area. Another big area of cooperation could be drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. In India, we are fundamentally using this not just for, while what we do see is a lot of talk about this being used as a force multiplier in combat. We think this is a transformative technology for agriculture. We see this as a transformative technology for improving our delivery systems in remote areas, giving access to products to remote areas. So clearly, we see this as drones as a last mile connectivity tool for healthcare, for disaster relief, and really we want to make sure that we can civilian use of drone gathers momentum. And again, this could be a wonderful area of cooperation between the two countries. In our vision, we are very ambitious. We want to be making India the drone capital of the world. We want to make sure that we have the global leadership. And we've already seen 22.5% of total drone, which was done in 2023, was fundamentally in India. And India is already poised to become third largest drone market by 2030. And this again is an area which we are very excited about to cooperate. The another area where I think both countries could do a lot together is use of space technology. We can only say in terms of weather, remote sensing, in terms of communication. Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, has done a terrific work, and we do see that their space technology is another area where India could play a big role globally, but also the cooperation between India and US could accelerate the transition to making this technology available to many more developing countries. Already, as you would see, India is gearing up for lunar missions. There's a build-up phase. There is a reach-out phase in 28 to 40. And lunar base, we envision, will happen somewhere between 20 and 2047. We are working towards establishing a space station. The ambitious plan says that we need to complete the space station by 2035. And we are also working on new generation launch vehicles by 2034 and 35. We believe that we will have 8% of the global market share, and we would generate about $11 billion through exports. This is our understanding of the way we would build this business. But clearly, this area is again an area where we could have a joint space marketplace, joint launch capabilities being built. We could, India is building a strong ecosystem of private sector. A private sector collaboration could again be an area of work together. And fundamentally also, I think there is an area which both countries could cooperate, would be the space security. I think that's another area where it offers a deep opportunity. The The last area I wanted to touch about, which is in terms of emerging technologies in the area of advanced materials. Uh, Advanced material market would reach 2.1 trillion by this year, and there's going to be a whole host of spectrum of materials which I think world needs, and world needs to build resilience by having multiple sources, whether it be neodymium or rare earth minerals and nickel or cobalt. And here, clearly, we want to work together with the United States in building the supply chain and be in the forefront of developing newer materials through R&D. So here, our suggestion to the industry has been to focus on dedicated partnerships between industry and research institutions to look at advanced materials like graphene and titanium and other elements. We also have looked at how we could align this with the consumers of this business. And the other area we've worked is building centers of excellence in advanced material within India in various universities and IITs. And lastly, I think the focus here is going to be also supporting new innovative startups who will set up new manufacturing facilities for overcoming the bottlenecks in pure materials and new materials for multiple industries. So clearly, we see opportunity in areas of manufacturing, opportunities in the area of what I would call as emerging technologies, whether it be space, electric mobility, or this area of critical minerals. But all this, in my view, cannot be achieved unless we focus on one area where I think there is already a lot of cooperation. One of the largest pool of students in US in higher universities in Indian students. I think education and skill development will play a key role. And here already there is a lot of synergies which have been built. We need to build upon it to allow an ecosystem where we can get access to world-class education and skill development tools within India. And United States could play a very, very prominent role in this. And this is going to be the foundation of the change which we want to achieve for what we call as Viksit Bharat or Amrit as we see. And starting with the elements which we are focusing on, it is about the quality of K-12 education to make sure that our literacy rates are 100% by the time 2047 happens. We also want to focus on life skills in addition to academic excellence. So this is a program which we are putting together between industry and academic institutions right across so that we have workforce which is future ready. In terms of one of the elements which is a key part of that is about the teaching and the faculty, the quality of teachers. And a lot of focus the industry is doing through its CSR, which is corporate social responsibility funds. In India, we have to spend about 2% of our profits towards CSR, voluntary CSR. Here, many companies are focusing on teacher training programs, and there could be partnerships on how to sort of upskill this space to make our teaching faculty future ready. We also are increasingly seeing the participation of women and the literacy rates of women accelerate faster than men. We need to continue with this element, both at K-12 level, also at the undergrad and postgrad level. Overall, I think India has to progress a lot more in this space. We need to get at least 10 of our universities to be amongst the top 100 universities in the world. And that has to be achieved through focus on quality, focus on faculty development, focus on curriculum development, and again, an opportunity to work together. And all this will go towards creating, in my view, a pool of trained manpower. But beyond education, I think we also have to look at skilling. And in terms of skilling, India has a large productive workforce which is coming on, and if we don't skill them right, we will have basically what I call as shortage of labor. At the same time, we will have unemployed people. So we need to build the skilling as one of the key tools. And here we are doing a lot more by making sure that we can do remote skill development in parts where we are not able to reach directly through digital technology, and making sure that parts of India where labor participation is low, we are able to get them to being active in the workforce. And this is an ongoing effort of the industry in terms of making sure that we get a workforce which is ready. And also reskilling will be one of the key elements. We are trying to learn from other parts of the world, especially, for example, France has been one of the leading success stories of reskilling, and the industry has spent a lot of time to understand how France has done it. And here we are open to learn from what efforts are being done in the US to not just skill, but also reskill its workforce. So clearly, I would say that our vision for India in future is centered around, as I said, achieving holistic leadership in new world order, making sure that we maximize equitable economic progress across agriculture, manufacturing, and services, revitalizing India's soft power through arts and culture, tourism, and sports, innovate to stay ahead of the curve in climate and sustainability, digital platforms, and emerging technologies. Finally, transform the core by focusing on education, skill development, healthcare, judiciary and public administration reforms, and ensuring our infrastructure is world class and continues to support rapid urbanization, which we are witnessing. So the journey ahead, in my view, is going to be very exciting. And we see India not just becoming a third largest economy, but over a period of time, get on to be at least amongst the top two. And in doing so, we want to be a force for good for the world, and do it in a way, as Ambassador said, in a very inclusive way, not just within India, but all across. And therein, I think, lies the opportunity of partnership between US and India to build a world which works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukundan. Now, we're running a little bit behind because we added some additional components to our morning. So what I'll do now is I think we'll just take 2 questions and then we'll move right into the next session. Question, we've got someone with a mic. So questions, we're going to open it up. We have a question over here. Sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mukundan. This is Ganesh Natarajan. Just wanted to touch on your last point. I mean, you of course mentioned India will be moving towards number 3 in GDP terms, but inclusion and the whole, I mean, the problem we still have of struggling at $2,800 per capita income. In your vantage position in the Tata Group and CII, I mean, are there any pathways laid out for better inclusion, better livelihoods for all?
I think it's a very important point. I think we have to focus on making sure that our people are skilled right and that they are gainfully employed. I think that itself will be the first step, and also focus a lot more on entrepreneurship to spread that people are able to build businesses and not become just job seekers, but job creators. These are the 2 pillars. Clearly, I think growing per capita GDP should also be a focus. Some states in India have moved ahead. For example, if you look at Tamil Nadu, which has focused a lot on manufacturing, today the state of Tamil Nadu, the per capita GDP is equivalent of Vietnam. So while the rest of India lags behind. So I think we got to follow the model that if you want an inclusive growth, you need changes right across all sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, and services. One of the rapid growths in India in the last few decades has been the services sector growth. I think focusing back on manufacturing and ensuring manufacturing becomes a success story is going to be one of the key elements of that. We are all trying hard, and I said there are opportunities now, especially if you look at semiconductor, space, electric vehicle. These are all new opportunities where I think most of the countries are at the same starting line. So it is not that some countries have run ahead. So India has a good opportunity to at least grow and build upon it. But clearly, I agree that we have a long way to go on per capita income. Even if we become third or second largest economy, there will still remain a work in progress.
And we'll take one last question from a student over here.
Hello, my name is Satvik Paniel. I'm a research assistant at the American Enterprise Institute. And one of the things that has really kind of characterized one of the challenges for the Indian economy is the growth of MSMEs and smaller enterprises. What can you say about the steps that, that large corporations like Tata Group and others are taking to really to improve the environment for MSMEs in India and to create a whole ecosystem of suppliers that can meet international export needs?
Actually, one of the key bottlenecks for growth of manufacturing is going to be the vibrance of MSME sector, because MSME sector constitutes the largest pool of manufacturing, as high as 40% in some of the subsectors we speak about. So without this vibrant supply chain, I think the main companies will not even be able to build a formidable manufacturing base of their own. There have been a lot of success stories. Our automotive companies, some of Tata's as well as the others, have built a very vibrant sector. But one of the things we have to do is to work with the MSME entrepreneurs in terms of keeping their technologies up to date. Secondly, also to providing them access to credit. And thirdly, making sure that the larger companies continuously work with them to upgrade and upskill them, both in technology as well as soft skills. So this is an effort. I think what we've seen is success stories in many parts of India, in many subsectors where MSMEs have become much more competitive. I've just come back from a meeting of the construction and construction and the building capital goods sector in the morning, and I could see the enthusiasm of the component manufacturers, in fact, even more positive than the final companies which are making these excavators and dumper trucks and stuff like that. So one can clearly see that the component industry has moved forward, but there's a large part of this component sector which needs support in terms of upskilling, both in terms of skills and technology, access to credit. And I think that's a work which larger companies can play a very positive role. And CII has been at the forefront of it. In fact, large part of our membership is MSME. And just before this meeting, we just finished a center which we are setting up within CII, which will be bringing digital technologies to MSMEs by bringing in partnerships with the education institutions, the MSMEs as a cluster, and the digital solution providers, all companies like Microsoft, Google, making sure that there are solutions which are right for these companies to address their transformation towards becoming more digitized.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mukundan, for a very comprehensive address. We've learned much. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. We're going to go ahead and move on into our next session now. Please join me in thanking Mr. Mukundan.